Hello everybody, in this video we are going to continue our conversation about simplifying polynomial expressions. So in the previous video we spent a little bit of time talking about what is a polynomial, what is the degree of a polynomial, how do we name a polynomial, and leading coefficients and stuff like that. But in this video we are going to focus on how to combine polynomials. How do we take some expressions that require us to actually put things together? So one of the things that I want to mention is this is the same thing that we have been doing since the beginning of the year. We're looking for like terms. Now, if you're forgetting about your like terms, remember like terms are the numbers that have the same variable raised to the same exponent. So we talked about polynomials having the same variable but different exponents. You're going to have to match up the exponents to know which numbers you can and you can't combine. So let's look at the ones that we have here. Now remember, your answers need to be written in standard form. So I highly recommend that you have your standard form in mind from the very beginning. So you don't forget to do it at the end. So the first thing I'm going to point out is you're going to run into parentheses, and you're going to have to remember what to do with these parentheses. How do we get rid of them? Because notice that the parentheses are separating one expression from the other. And what we want to do is we want to get them together, and we want to combine like terms and just simplify it. Now, it does matter what's in between these two parentheses. So the first thing you're going to do when you're looking at a polynomial is to look in the middle. So notice that this one has a minus sign. When you see a minus sign in the middle, we are going to distribute the negative to the second parentheses. So pretend for a second that there's a negative 1 here. I'm going to ask you to multiply the negative 1 by all the numbers that are inside the parentheses. So if you have 3 numbers, then you're going to multiply all 3 numbers by the negative 1. If you have 4, if you have 2, if you have 1, then we're going to multiply what's inside by what's outside. Now notice that the first parentheses does not have a number on the outside. So there's actually nothing to do here. So what I'm going to ask you to do is let's go ahead and get out everything that's in the first parentheses. We're just going to take it out. We're not going to change anything about it. We're just going to leave them the same, but it's not going to have a parentheses. Okay, so the first one stays the same, but the second one, because it has a negative, is going to get multiplied. So if I take my negative 1 and multiply it by 7, it gives me negative 7 n squared. If I take my negative 1 and multiply it by 4, it gives me a negative 4 n to the third. Negative 1 times 3 is a negative 3n. And then from here, now that I no longer have any parentheses separating anything, I can now put things together. Now, since I know that my final answer has to be in standard form, I highly recommend you start with the biggest exponent and then work your way down. So that way you're not working twice as hard or doing twice as much as work. So I'm looking here and I'm looking at all my exponents. Anything that doesn't have an exponent, give it a 1. So we have all these variables. And it looks like the highest exponent is a 4. Now notice I only have 1 n to the 4th power. So that means I don't have anything here to combine with it. So I'm going to put it in the front and do nothing to it, because there's not another number to add or subtract to it. So I'm done with this one. I'm actually going to cross these out so I know that I no longer need that number. I've already used it. The next number that comes after 4 would be 3. So if you pay attention, you're going to notice that there are 2 n to the 3rd powers. This 4 and this negative 4. So I'm just going to read it like I read a book. 4 minus 4 gives me 0. If it's 0, we don't have to write it down. So I'm not writing down the 0. I'm also not going to bring down the n to the 3rd because there are 0 n to the 3rd powers. So these cancel each other out. They eliminate each other. So there's no need to write it down. All right. What comes after 3 would be 2. I do have an n to the second power right here, and I also have another n to the second power right there. We can actually put both of these together. So for this one, we're going to take this negative 2, and we're going to subtract 7 from it, which gives us negative 9. And there you go. So negative 2 minus 7 gives us negative 9. We bring down the n squared. And the only thing that's left over are these n to the 1 power. So I have this 7 and this minus 3. So 7 minus 3 gives us a positive 4 n to the 1. This is our final answer, because not only did we combine like terms, but now it's in standard form, because if you start with the biggest number and work your way down, then it's already in form. 4, 2, 1. This is my final answer in standard form. So we're going to do something very similar to the second problem, but you're going to notice that the second problem isn't exactly the same. So if you look in between both of your parentheses, you're going to realize this one doesn't have a minus, it has a plus. So with that being said, there's a plus sign in the middle, then that means that I don't need to multiply by a negative 1. If I multiply by a positive 1, everything's just going to stay the same. So if you have this plus sign right here, that just means take everything out of the parentheses, but don't change them. So I'm going to bring this out as a 1r to the 4th minus 2 minus 4r to the 3rd minus 7r. So notice I brought everything out of the first one, didn't change a thing. I'm going to do the exact same thing. That's still a positive 4r minus 4r to the 4th and a positive 1r to the 3rd. So the only thing that I did different is anything that didn't have a coefficient, I put an understood 1 there. Okay. And now it's time for us to be able to combine like terms. So let's start with the highest exponent. I'm looking at all of my exponents here, and I could see that this negative 4 and this positive 1 go together. They both have the same letter, and they both have the same exponent. I can actually combine these. So I'm going to read it like I do a book. 1 minus 4 gives us negative 3r to the 4th. Okay, what comes after 4? 3. Negative 4 plus 1. So once again, negative 3r to the 3rd. Because negative 4 plus 1 gives us negative 3. All right, what comes after 3 is 2. I don't have anything that's raised to the second power. So the next one would be just the r's, because the r's are raised to the 1 power. And I do have 2 of those. And so that's negative 7 plus 4. Negative 7 plus 4 gives me negative 3r to the 1 power. And before I walk away from this, don't forget about that negative 2. There's nobody to combine the negative 2 with. This is my final answer. I just bring it down. And because it's a constant, it goes at the end. Now notice that not only did I put all my numbers together and combine them, but now it's in standard form, because this is r to the 4th, this is r to the 3rd, r to the 1, and this is my constant. So not only did I combine it, I cleaned it up, but it's in standard form and it's done. Okay, so remember that we're looking at the same variable, but they have to have the same exponent for me to actually put them together. So one of the things that I do want to point out before I go to the next video is that when you see 2 sets of parentheses, our mind automatically tells us we probably need to multiply. And that's going to be the case when we multiply polynomials. But one of the biggest mistakes that I see when we're working these kinds of problems is we forget that if there's a plus or a minus in the middle, that we can't multiply. We have to distribute either the positive or the negative 1. And then we need to just add and subtract. That's it. So please get into the habit of looking in between your 2 parentheses so you know whether we're adding, we're subtracting, or we're going to multiply. So I'm actually going to stop right here. I hope that looking at these two examples have helped you understand kind of what can and cannot be put together. And then in the next video, we're actually going to do the multiplication of polynomials, and we're actually going to do it two different ways. So you can pick the method that you like the best, that makes more sense to you. So I hope that helps, and I'll see you in the next video.